nobody talks about that part.
That's the part people need to hear.
I've never shared this publicly.
The leaders are talking. The stories are real. Don't miss what everyone will be talking about.
Forget the highlight reel. The most valuable lessons live in the mess. The pivots, the failures, the moments nobody posts about. Bold Xchange exists for exactly that conversation. I'm Laurie Sallarulo, your host of Bold Xchange, and this conversation, it's about to get real. My next guest didn't just break into one of the most male-dominated industries in America. She took it over. Rita Case is the president, CEO, and owner of the Rita Case Automotive Group, the nation's largest retail auto group owned and operated by a woman. We're talking $2 billion, billion with a B, in annual sales, 12 dealerships across South Florida and Atlanta, and a track record of setting national volume records that, according to Rita herself, still haven't been broken. But here's what makes Rita's story different. She didn't inherit the throne. She earned it. Growing up working in her parents' Honda dealership in California, building an empire side by side with her late husband, Rick, for over 40 years. And then, when the world expected her to step back, she stepped all the way forward as CEO. She's a Horatio Alger Award inductee, a Federal Reserve board chair, a community philanthropist who has helped raise over $125 million for South Florida organizations. And as of just weeks ago, the 2026 Barbara Cox Woman of the Year. Wow. Rita Case is proof that the car business, the boardroom, and the community are better when women drive. This is Bold Xchange. And welcome, Rita.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
That was a wow introduction.
Well, I have to say, first of all, I am a customer. I am a fan. I love watching you. You're just an amazing role model for women like myself, or young girls, right? Because you know what we do here at Junior Team with our young people and preparing them for the world. And you are one of the most wonderful role models they could ever have. I think the boldest thing we can ever do is to be honest about the journey, right? And share that with those who are coming behind us, the next generation. And so that's for today. I want to just have that conversation. And I do want to talk about just being a woman, right? We talked about how you came up in the family business. You learned the business from the ground up. I know I've heard the story so many times. I think I can't imagine that the world, the automotive world, rolled out the red carpet for you.
And so, no, not quite.
Right. So talk a little bit about what that was like, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, what it was like to enter in and really make sure that your voice was heard at the table.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right, Laura. It was not rolled out the red carpet. And in the early 70s, when my dad became the first Honda dealer in the United States, I was working there. It was a Honda motorcycle store first. And so I was working there, and this was in junior high. And then when I got into high school, we ended up getting the Honda car, which was in 1970. And I was like, I was working in the dealership, just doing like cleaning the floors and doing title work and those things, putting away parts. And I'm like, I want to be in this business. Selling cars is so much fun. Everybody wants to talk about cars. And my dad goes, listen, I have two brothers and a sister, older brother and a younger brother. And he's like, listen, really the car business is for the boys. My sister was going on to be a nurse. And he says, that's really the direction you need to go. Or how about be a teacher? Because a lot of women in the early 70s and 60s went into become teachers, which we need. And I said, no, Dad, I love people. This is super fun. He just kept saying, well, really, this is really not a business for a woman. The car business is truly more a man's industry. So I was persistent and I said, well, let me hang out here. And so I worked all through high school and I went off to college, close to home so I could continue to be a part of the business, got back from college. And when I would go to the meetings with my dad, everybody called me the DD. Dealer's daughter. They really didn't give me any voice. They really didn't I was there because that was Bill Manley's daughter. She's just hanging out, going to the meetings. So when I got out of college, I told my dad, it's never going to work, Dad, with you here. You have to leave. I have to be here by myself. I've earned the right to run this store because remember, I had worked in every position all the way up from parts manager, service manager, all those years. And so he did. He said, okay, you can run the dealership. But of course, he was right there, a phone call away. Well, not a cell phone call away. There were no cell phones then. And, or internet. So, I had to really prove myself. And the way that I did that was by education. So I've always been one that talks about education builds confidence. Confidence builds your ability to speak and to share, and it also creates followers. So by really educating myself on the industry, on the economy, on the car business, on the Honda product, because in the early 70s, it was still not selling. It was not a known, people were not buying Honda cars. They were so small. They weren't buying Toyotas. They weren't buying Datsuns. And so that's how I did it. It was just education and then making myself heard. I was very confident because I spent that time educating myself.
Yeah, that's amazing. Think about it. Your first challenge really was to win your dad's, right? In a sense, just like he said, this is a man's business. Right. You had to prove to your father first before anyone else, right? That you could run this business.
And unfortunately, I wasn't having to have competition with my brothers. That could have changed history for me. Mm-hmm. Had my older brother wanted to be in the business, my sister was already off into becoming a nurse. My older brother wanted to be in construction. He didn't want to work for his father. That's very common. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to work for your parents. And then my younger brother was, still in high school, and he wasn't really thinking about any sort of career. Right. I was the one that was like at that sweet spot and working very, very hard to prove myself. So he did give me that chance. Right. And I made sure that I didn't let him down.
I think that is a woman thing. I don't know. But, and I love when you talk about confidence, right? What we do here at Junior Achievement. We see the students, especially in high school, come in at the beginning of a school year, right, where we're working in our programs to get them ready to put them in jobs. And they don't have the confidence to get up and speak, to your point, right? Or to introduce themselves to someone. And when you see them at the end of these programs and you see their chests puffed out a little and that confidence, it's so rewarding because I do believe you're right. If we are confident, we pretty much accomplish anything.
Right. And you really can't be confident without an education and without practice. And when I have an opportunity to speak to the high school kids, I say, does anybody have any questions? It's like dead silence. And I'm like, it's okay to ask me what you're thinking, even though you think that maybe everybody else knows it. I said, that is the first step to public speaking. Right. And I always encourage the high school students. I say, listen, practice going at a birthday party. So your girlfriend's having a birthday party and you've got 20 girlfriends there, and stand up and say, I want to toast to Mary. I've known Mary since I was in 3rd grade. And these are some of the things that Mary and I did that that are memorable. I said, start public speaking amongst your friends. Stand up and speak, and it gets easier as you go. Oh. And it's certainly much easier to do public speaking when you know what you're talking about. Of course, education.
Education, understanding your business, when you're working for a company, all of those things. When you speak from the heart, it becomes so much more natural. I think you and Rick you're pioneers, right? You went through, you took on challenges, and you took on dealerships and initiatives that were pretty bold at the time, right? Some might have called them reckless. What was the difference?
When we got married, he was a Honda car and motorcycle dealer, so was I. We got married at a Honda convention. And I ended up moving from beautiful Santa Rosa, California to Akron, Ohio, from the most sunniest days in the world to the least sunniest days. But it was okay because, love is blind. So the only way we could grow the business, because we were both very ambitious, I was ambitious to prove that a woman could be a car dealer, that a woman could make a contribution to the auto retail industry. It hadn't been done. There weren't any. And he wanted to prove that he could be the largest volume of anything that he sold. That was always his. Sell, volume. And so the only way we could grow, because we didn't have any sort of finances, was we brought cars that had never been sold in America. So we introduced most every automobile since 1980 when we got married to the United States that had never been sold. We were the first Isuzu dealers, the first Acura dealers, the first Hyundai dealers, the first Kia dealers, the first Mitsubishi dealers, the first Daewoo. We gave that a try.
Those were risky decisions.
Yes, because
right? What if it didn't work? What if you brought that to the United States and that didn't work?
Right. How did we know that someone was going to buy a Korean car when there's never been any merchandise sold in America that was Korean made? Now with the Japanese, we had cameras. We had electronics. We knew that the Japanese made a quality product. They didn't know that they made a quality car, but they knew they made quality products. Where with Korea, with the Hyundai, when we introduced it in 1985, we were introducing a product that had no track record at all. The Koreans had no track record of building anything that had been tested in the United States. So that was a risk. That was a risk, but we believed in the product. We went to Canada for 2 weeks. They were selling the Hyundai in Canada. It was called the Pony. That was the name of the car. So we spent 2 weeks in Canada talking to customers, going to the factory, going to the headquarters, talking to dealers, finding out, is it a quality car? Does the manufacturer stand behind it? Is the warranty stood behind that? Before we would build this dealership from the ground up, risk everything, because we had to take loans out, to introduce a car that we had to say was a Korean-built car.
So you did your homework.
We did our homework.
And so when you took that risk, it was a strategic, calculated, educated risk.
Right. We've never taken risks that just had that we didn't have confidence.
Right.
Yeah. It all goes back to that. Had confidence.
Right. So, I often you hear people who couples that work together, husband and wife, right, boyfriend and girlfriend, all of those different things. And I know I've heard so many people say, how do you make that work? Right? How do you live together and work together? Mm-hmm. And I think, how did you guys do that?
It's a very good question. I am asked that often over the last. We were married for over 40 years. And the way that I did it was when Rick and I got married, we had both very similar resumes. We were both running car dealerships. I could do sales, service, parts, office, and he could pretty much do sales. And he just had other people doing the parts and service in the office because he was motivated by sales, like I was saying. So when we got married, I said, honey, I don't want to, because I was the only woman in his business except for cashier. Or some office people. He had no women in any of his employee. Wow. So when I came in, he wanted to introduce me as, this is a car dealer I married from California. She's going to be fantastic. Nobody knew me at all because I was from a different, town. It was a different state. And I walked into this room of all these men, all of his managers. And I just said, listen, guys, I'm not here to take your job. I'm not here to be your leader or your manager. I said, I'm here to only make this business better for you, for me, and for my future. I'm a car dealer. I want to make this a great business. So I told them I'll do parts and service because they didn't want to do parts and service. We're talking about, the 80s when now parts and service is truly part of the financial statement of an automobile dealership. But before it was more like you had to have it, because people expected you to fix their product, but really it was all about sales. So I took on parts and service, and that kind of laid the ground floor for Rick and I. I did parts and service, the office, administration, and the people. That has always been my resume in the Rita Case Automotive Group. I was more the operational leader, and he was the salesman, and he was the marketing genius that came up with so many of those amazing, double the factory warranty and all of those things. And he was also the namesake of the business, and he was the communication with the factory. So when it came to getting more cars and things like that. So throughout the years, we just continued to stay in our own lane.
Oh, that's what's so
we stayed in our
so often people, want to tell the other person how to run that business.
Don't spend so much in advertising, Rick, because I can't afford it. I'm like, listen, I'll let you know when we're at a breaking point. Right. We respected each other. we communicated, we appreciated each other's talents. And when it actually came down to a big decision, like, for example, building that Honda store, which took everything we had, every dollar we had, as well as all the loans we could get. And we just wrote it down on a piece of paper. I said what I thought, risks, because I was the risk. I was the anti-risk. He was the risk. That was our, that's what happened.
But you probably found the secret.
We did, otherwise we wouldn't be as successful as we are today.
Exactly. So, I think, it's interesting, and I'm going to say something, and I hope that it doesn't, come off the wrong way, but I want to be open and honest about it. When Rick passed, I wonder, as a woman, right, and being on the operational side, right, for most of the time you were in the business, I can't help but think that there were probably some people that weren't sure, right? Were you going to take over as CEO? Were you going to take the business forward? I'm sure there had to be people question. And you have just continued to move this business forward and shown everyone that you, right, can do CEO, COO, sales, and can continue to build that business no matter what position you are in. So I hope that I did not offend you.
No, actually, I think you knew me for all these years. We've been in many organizations for pretty much my career here for the last 45 years I've been here. People came to me, you're not going to believe this, and said, we didn't know that you worked. Now, I know that seems hard to believe, but it's because I was on the commercials, but I wasn't the face of the business. I wasn't on the signs. I wasn't the one that was speaking at all the charity events. I was there, but the outside world did not know that I actually participated in the operations. The inside, of course, all of our dealerships and the factory did, but customers and the community. So they said to me, oh my gosh, Rita, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to continue to run the business. Oh, how are you going to do that? And I said, well, I may have been in the background that you didn't know that, but I've been in this business my entire life. I was a car dealer before I met Rick. I continued to always be a part of the operations of the business. We grew the business together. So people did not naturally know that. They saw me on TV. They saw my hat. Okay, she's a brand. And though that is what I did, I got that from a lot. The manufacturers all were wondering, oh, she's just going to take the money and run. But most of them, like Hyundai, the ones that we were grounded with for 40 years and longer, they knew that I could run the business. So I wanted to run it. And what I try to explain, and I'm sure that anybody in the situation would say the same thing, this is my family. The manufacturers have been with me since I was 20 years old. A lot of them still, remember me and work in the factory, or work in the manufacturers, Honda, it was the first Hyundai, all that. All of my dealer friends, most of them now have the children in, they're running the children. So I go to these conventions. I was just one last week. These are all my friends.
So you not only had the confidence to become CEO, but those in the business who knew you and knew what you had done previously had the confidence.
I had total confidence to run the business because I was the operational person. I was running the business. When you think of operations, Rick really enjoyed the marketing, coming up with the advertising campaigns, going and negotiating additional inventory. He loved to train the salespeople. He was a salesman, but not necessarily, he didn't need to learn operations.
Right. And that wasn't his thing. So, when you say about it, I said the same thing. Even though I was a chief financial officer before I became a CEO, I would much rather be on the sales and relationship and marketing side than I would on the operational side.
Right? So you had that foundation.
I haven't, right. But I much prefer to be like Rick, right? Doing the sales part. As you became CEO, I want to talk about leadership for a minute, because I remember when I came in here at JA, and you probably remember this, when I came in, we had just lost Melissa Ayala. And she is killed tragically, right? And it's almost 12, it's about 12 years ago. So I'm here now, just about 11 years. And I remember coming in, right? And coming in as CEO, they had a previous CEO. Now she's gone. And I remember that transition. It was probably one of the most difficult of my career because I had to earn people's trust. I had to figure out what my leadership style, how it was going to work here, what they were going to respond to. But I also had to be me, right? And so stepping into the CEO role, how did yours and Rick's leadership styles differ? And then how did you step into that? And right, they knew you obviously your staff trusted you and respected you and you had all that because you were there. But now you're in a different position. How did your roles, how did your leadership styles mesh, or how are they really different?
Fortunately, it was a positive difference, not stating that Rick's style was negative, but my style was more positive for the people. He was very much, I know what I want. This is what's going to work. We're going to do it this way. And just trust me, it's going to work. And that's how we went along for years. So, when he passed away, the very first thing I did was get my leadership together, my general managers together. And, I told them, listen, don't worry. I'm not selling the business. Number one, it's not for sale for any price. Don't listen, because all the rumors were out to be disruptive to our business because we were a successful ongoing business. So we were getting people trying to disrupt our business, to take our good people. Oh, she's going to sell. You better leave now. That kind of thing. So I assured everybody of that. And then I said, guys, because it was mostly guys, I said, it's a blank sheet of paper. And I passed around a blank sheet of paper, just a blank sheet of paper. And I said, we're going to start fresh. We're going to start fresh. And I'm going to operate by committee. I'm going to operate as a team. And they understood what I meant, because Rick, not that he wasn't a team player, but he was more, I know it's going to work and this is where we're going to do it. It was not really open for a lot of discussion. And he always was right. So everybody just marched along.
Right.
Well, I felt that my style was different, coming from the HR side, coming from the operations side, having to deal with a lot of employees over the years and what their problems were. You just build the softer side. And so that's how I did it. And that was the big change. That was a big change in our company. We didn't operate any differently. Our customers are friends. All of that, is our foundation. But we are operating as a group now. I have top directors that I work with, who we make all decisions together. We make all decisions together. If I'm going to remodel, build a new dealership, it's a decision together. That wasn't how it was with Rick. Not a negative, but that was to answer your question. And so I feel like what that has done is certainly taken quite a burden of the decision making off of me. Number one, it's given them ownership to the decision, so they're going to make sure it works. They're going to make sure it works. They're going to help me make sure it works. And that was probably the biggest change.
Yeah, I love it.
And we've been very successful, continue to be very successful.
Absolutely.
We haven't gone backwards at all.
Yeah, your children are now in the business, right? And Raquel.
Well, they're not as much. They were when Rick passed away. They helped me out. Raquel took over the philanthropy, but as you know, she just had her first child, and now she's going to have a second child, so she's a mother now. And our son, he has done a lot of different jobs in the company, but he's now on an exploration mode, which I think is great. So he's out exploring whether the business that he was put into when he was very young is truly the business where he would like to have his career. That's not a negative statement. It's
he has to find his passion.
He wants to find his passion. And working for his mother is not easy. Okay. And I have a lot of energy. I am a very strong leader. And I feel that it would be better for him to have a chance to go and, build his own confidence and see whether this is what he wants.
Good for you. So often in family businesses, kids are forced into, right, being in the family business and continuing the legacy, right, on and on. I love that you have given them the choice, right?
Yes.
Your daughter Raquel wanting to be a mom.
Yes.
Right? That's right. Some other moms like you might have said, no, you need to come back into the business. You need to be a working mom.
Need to help me. Right. And no, I did. They all did come to help me in the beginning, but I've given them the reins now. I said, the company's not selling. I've got a lot of great years. I have a great bench behind me, many of my leadership, they're on the board. Yeah. So I have a strategic bench behind me and 30, 40, 50, 60, so that there's going to be a continuous bench. There is no reason that the operation cannot be ran by a group of dedicated leaders like any other Fortune 500 company or those, but still be owned by a family. Right. We will remain owned and operated. Should I say owned and overseen by my family for generations is our goal, my children's goal, and they have children, so I see that we can keep this.
Yes.
But no, the kids aren't working in the business daily anymore, and that is fine. I want them to explore their own. It's a very difficult business. It's a very difficult, time-consuming, competitive business, and on top of that, working for your mom.
Right.
I mean,
you have to really want it.
Well, it's hard to be mom and boss.
Right. Well, I was going to say that too. I asked that question about Rick, right?
Yeah.
And working together and living together.
Yeah.
I think, it's that same challenge when you work together as children and parents, right? You have to figure out, when am I mom? Right. And there are times when, even with my own daughter, she'll say to me, Mom, I need you to be mom right now.
Right.
Or Mom, I need you to be the mentor right now. Or I need you to be the CEO right now. Right.
No,
and I love that she will tell. I love that she's so direct that she tells me that, right? And sometimes I'll just ask, who do you need me to be right now? Right. And I love that.
And the other big key point about children working for you, and I feel the same way when I was working for my dad, is you don't want to disappoint. Now, none of your associates here at JA want to disappoint you because they appreciate you. They see your commitment. They are passionate about your passion. But it isn't different. It's different.
They'll go home with me.
It's a different disappointment when your daughter feels like she's disappointed you.
Right.
So that was a underlying pressure on both of my children. They wanted so much not to disappoint me that puts pressure on me to be a different kind of leader for them because I was so guarded that they never felt like they were disappointing me. So it was really an inefficient kind of situation, which will outgrow over time. But right now, they're good.
I love that.
You love to see them both have just a great. Raquel wants to be a mom,
right? And good for her.
Love it.
Because the children, right? They need that guidance and mentoring. And so I want to close out this episode being Women's Month in March, right? And I want to. We've talked about you being the only woman in the room. We've talked about you working in the business in a male-dominated industry, working together. You've talked about confidence, right? And then our young people need to have confidence. But for our young women, and I don't want the fluffy answer. I want the really tough, bold answer. For our young women out there today, what is it, right? What do you need to tell them? How can they be bold? Like we talk about this episode being bold exchange. How can they be bold in crafting and navigating their futures?
Well, I wasn't prepared totally for all these questions. I will give you my very best answer. And that is that don't be a follower. Be a leader. Don't be a follower. If all your friends are going off to be, influencers or, software, whatever, don't be a follower. Take the time to explore opportunities to find a passion. I call it the spark. There will be a spark and you'll say, oh my gosh, I really want to be in the medical field because I just know that I'm so happy when I help someone, or I really want to be with animals because that got this unbelievable passion to help animals. It can be anything. Teacher, you're going to find your spark. So I say, go experiment till you find your spark and then believe in yourself. Everybody told me in the 70s, most everybody watching this aren't even born yet. In the 70s, they said, Rita, you'll never make it. There are no female car dealers. You're never going to be taken seriously. You're never going to have a voice, no matter, even if you're the smartest person in the world. They're just going to be like, what's she doing here? I'm not going to do well in the 1 to 4 o'clock every afternoon martini lunches that the car dealers did back then. Okay, that's back then.
I wouldn't do all these.
Yeah. So that's what I would tell them. Believe in yourself. Don't let anyone tell you you can't, because you can. Find someone else that has. And if it's not a woman, but it's a man that's done what you want done, embrace yourself and say, hey, help me so that I can be on the freeway straight. Tell me all the mistakes you made and all the things you did right, and I'm going to follow your playbook instead of me wandering up the switchbacks up the mountain on a dirt road because I'm just on my own wandering. So,
for someone who was not prepared to answer that, I mean, hello, couldn't have asked for better advice for our young people.
Yes.
And I love that. Find your spark.
Yes.
I doesn't have to use that one.
I do. I do. That's what I tell people about philanthropy when they always say, how did you choose your fund? I said, I found my spark.
Yeah.
It would hit my heart. And that's what I went after to help.
Yeah.
Of course, it spidered out, but that's how it started.
Yes, you are so supportive in our community. Thank you so much for sharing, for opening up, for allowing me to ask anything. This was not scripted, by the way. We did not know any of the questions we were going to talk about because I really wanted to have a bold, honest, authentic conversation with you. And I think that is so valuable for our viewers. So the boldest thing any of us can do is to be honest about the journey. Thank you for sharing yours today. And thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Bold Xchange.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. That was great.
Bold Xchange is a production of Junior Achievement of South Florida. Subscribe wherever you listen so you never miss a conversation. Follow us on social at JA South Florida and visit jasouthflorida.org to learn more. Got a bold story? Reach out. We want to hear it.